Mike Squires, and this is the Couch Riffs podcast, episode number 248. And my guest, Matt Covey, a killer drummer from New York by way of Connecticut, a studied percussionist, drummer, ensemble player, fella who knows his way around the kit and otherwise. Also, totally played a crushing role in an upcoming Couch Riffs cover song release. The next one, actually. It's all done. It's ready to go. It's just almost there. A couple weeks, you're going to see it. It was an absolute pleasure to get to talk with him today. I guess it wasn't today, but you're going to hear it today. That's how this works. That's how science and technology and time works. Did that sound totally shitty? That's as shitty as it gets around here, really. I had a wonderful time talking with Matt. What a dude. What a player. I want all the greatest. You know what? I want all the greatest stuff for all the people that I get to talk to on here, because I get to talk to the hardest working, coolest, most talented people around every week. And it's a privilege for me. And it's really very cool. And so I'm grateful to get the opportunity to do this. So thanks for stopping by, Matt. Matt plays drums in the bands Such Gold and Zombie Apocalypse, where his drumming is well showcased. Go check it out. If you are enjoying the Couch Riffs podcast, this is your personal invitation to support us on Patreon. We do a podcast release every single week. We make cover song videos that release every month. We work very hard. Everything's free. You can access it and watch it, and, it's great. And that won't ever change. But if you would like to see it grow and improve, please do. And you have the means to support. Please support on Patreon. All of this stuff takes time and resources meaning money. And so your support is very, very appreciated. Thank you. If you are already supporting, if you are considering, no time like the present. And if you cannot and you just watch and, even if you share or whatever you do, thank you for hearing these words. I appreciate you. There are a couple people I would like to thank. I would like to thank Variety Coffee Roasters. Now, Variety Coffee is coffee that I drink every single morning. I drink it every morning. It goes in my mug. I wake up, I make Chemex, walk the dogs, and I get high on coffee. It's great. Variety is from Brooklyn, New York. They have a number of cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. Go check it out. They have a subscription service, varietycoffeeroasters.com. You just click a couple buttons and they send you coffee automatically. You never run out, You can gauge, like, if you want it every week or every 2 weeks or every month or whatever, how much you want sent, what kind you want. It's wonderful. I drink it. That's the best endorsement I can give you for anything. Thank you, Variety Coffee Roasters. You guys are fucking wonderful. I would like to thank Shane Middleton, my pal, who cut my long COVID locks off and sent me away with some wonderful hair products. Middleton Hair Company, hair care products. Shane operates The Cut by Shane in Hollywood. He's got another location. Maybe it's in Santa Monica. I don't remember. One of the Santas. So it's Santa Maria or the Pina or the whatever the other one, the Sea of Cortez. I should know the fucking names of the ships that came over with the Pilgrims, right? I went to school a long time ago. I use Middleton hair care products every day. Well, I don't shower every day, so I don't put the product in my hair every day. But I use his motion lotion and his holding paste. It's killer. Now I use his shampoo and his conditioner, and it smells like I want stuff to smell. I don't have to use my wife's hair products, and I don't have to smell like prettier than I'm supposed to, because I don't even look like I should smell pretty. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. I'll put a link in the description of this podcast. Thank you, Middleton Hair Company. You guys are fucking great. We're going to get into the episode now. Thank you for hanging in there for this intro. Don't forget the golden rule. It's real easy. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't be a fucking asshole. That's how it is sometimes. Matt Covey, welcome to Couch Riffs podcast, Drummer Awareness Month.
Oh, am I a bad drummer because I didn't know it was my own awareness month?
No, I mean it's it's only a holiday around here. Also,
okay.
It's not like drummers are a scourge, or a disease or something. It's we don't need to be aware of them, but that's what we do around here. It's drummer awareness.
All right.
Yeah. Welcome. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel good. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like anybody cares beyond, me showing up to the gig, which is usually, that's usually where it ends. They go like, right. Drummer. Yeah. Who the hell is it today? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's somebody sitting there.
Your name.
Yeah. There's somebody sitting there. You guys ready? Count it off.
How many gigs have you done without a rehearsal? Just
a lot. A lot of
that were, like songs that you had to learn independently and then show up and play. A lot.
Yeah, quite a few. So most of them were probably in like a wedding band context. So I've subbed for a bunch of wedding bands over the years, and that happens all the time. In most cases, I've done it
September and
maybe a couple requests,
trio.
Maybe a couple songs that usually it's the requests where I don't know the song, of course. But sometimes, there's going to be, I might get a set list with the 2 sets on it or 3 sets on it, and scattered throughout there might be 5 or 6 songs I don't know. But for the most part, when I do show up in these situations, I've played, 75 to 80% of the songs before, and probably with those people. But I did one of my first New York City wedding gigs was it was December or November or something like that. And I'd never played with a single person in that band before. Still knew most of the songs just from having done the wedding thing. And
right.
and it all worked out great. But I do occasionally like jump up and play a set with like an original band when they're usually, they're in trouble. So it's like right. they got to me the day before or like a week before, and it's just kind of like, it's going to be whatever it's going to be. Don't worry about it. And I'm like,
so they can't complain if it's not spotless.
Yeah.
For people who are listening, let's give them 20 songs that are on every wedding band play set list.
Well, there's at least 6 Bruno Mars songs. we can,
sure.
But let's not use all 6 Bruno Mars, because we still got, another 14 or something to get
They're
to.
Kind of fun songs to play.
They are. They pretty much always are. Let's see. So obviously Uptown Funk,
Locked Out of Heaven.
Treasure, Locked Out of Heaven.
Treasure is great. Treasure is essentially an Earth, Wind and Fire song, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no doubt. Basically all the Bruno Mars songs are like that at some point. It's like some, 2 artists in a fantasy world mated.
Right.
They're all like that pretty much, but he's been doing it for so long and has gotten really good at that thing. I used to be pissed about it. Not even pissed, but just kind of like, sounds just like Earth, Wind and Fire or whoever. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm okay
but
with
if you're going to sound like someone, that's not problematic to me.
No, true. But when the other one you just named, Locked Out of Heaven, when that came out, because that was like the first one where I was just like, wow, this is the Police, and it's
Right.
I can't think of who the other main one that I hear in that song is. Well, there's any number of EDM artists could be the chorus, I guess. But at that point, you know, and it has a little early MJ sound, just production sound wise. But so at first I was like, come on, you know, come on. This is it. You're just, you know, grumpy old man shit. And I got past it.
This isn't art. This is craft.
Yeah, right.
I've made a career out of that.
Yeah. It's a wedding band gig. Let's just chill the fuck out.
All right. What else do we have on there?
Oh, what else do we have on there?
There's some Journey songs for sure.
Yeah, Don't Stop Believing's the main one, of course.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll get a.
What is the one with the boom, 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 boom?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. That super 50s.
Yeah.
John.
City by the Bay.
City by the Bay, and then there's the big wheel keep on turning once in a while.
Oh, I've never
really
done
once
that
in a
one.
while. Yeah, I've only done that when it's been like a wedding band playing like a cover gig at a club. It's not much of a wedding song.
Probably a couple Lady Gaga tunes.
Poker Face is. I think Poker Face might be the only one I've played. Might
That's
just be
a fun
Poker
one
Face.
to play too.
It's fun. There's something about that song that is irritating to me, but I think it's just like the aesthetic of that. Her aesthetic of the time never really did it for me. Right. So I don't dislike playing it. I definitely don't like listening to it though for some reason. Like I get
Bad
it,
association.
but it just I don't know why it just it sounds less accomplished, like a less accomplished musician than I know it is. So I don't get what it's my problem probably. So
she's not even an actor at that point.
Nah.
What else do we have?
What else? We got
I mean, we're like 10 tracks in.
I know this should be coming faster to my mind.
There's two Bon Jovi songs that have to be there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
You know, I've played a surprising amount. Well, maybe it's just because with one band that always does the Lionel Richie. What's the big dance number like? Oh, it's All Night Long. I've played All Night Long. One. There's one band that I work with that does that one kind of often. It's so fun to play, but it took a lot to learn because it has some tricky stuff.
You're probably doing Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Only once in a while.
Really?
Like it's not a staple at least not with those particular bands.
True Colors. There's got to be a slow dance moment.
Oh, right? Yeah, for sure. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to, maybe I got a set list. I think I can just pull one up.
Wow.
I don't know if it's worth it.
I mean, I'm having fun.
Okay, let's see.
I'm having a fine time. Well, I'm trying to think, what were some of the, you're probably rocking Billie Jean.
Billie Jean, yeah, that's a definite.
You got it, right?
Shake Your Body Down.
Shake Your Body Down. Maybe, boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, boom. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough.
Yep, that one for sure.
Right?
Also, Rick James. Once in a while, we do Super Freak, which is like.
What about Brick House?
Brick House, not as often.
Really?
Not as often.
Probably not a great bride song.
It's because I was just thinking that about the last one I mentioned, the Rick James. She's a super freak. That doesn't feel like. Wait,
it's got to be the right.
Maybe it's the other. What's the other one?
Two families.
Yeah. What's the other? That. No, it might not be Super Freak. It's not
Mary Jane.
What's the other Rick James one?
Mary Jane.
Is it called? I don't think that's the one that I'm thinking of.
Mary Jane. No.
Oh yeah, I know that. I do know that tune. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, I got a couple of playlists right here that I made. Where is it?
I'm excited for this.
Do you want me to just read straight down what I have on this
Yeah,
one? This is from 2019.
Okay.
Ho Hey, Lumineers.
Wow.
Sorry,
All
I
right.
had to make a face.
Do you guys all clap and stomp? The whole band?
I don't.
No, you refuse.
Well, I'm kind of already sort of doing that,
Right.
you know, but like I'm not. Extra effort is not going to happen on that particular song. Can't Hurry Love, Supremes.
Oh yeah.
There's Shake Your Body Down. Can't Stop the Feeling is a super big like modern wedding song. I'm not that the song's modern anymore; it's old as hell now. But okay, Jason Derulo, Want to Want Me.
Oh, I don't know that.
The Monkees, I'm a Believer.
Huh.
Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. Hey Ya.
Yeah.
You're My Best Friend by Queen.
Oh wow.
This is this particular wedding, I think.
Yeah.
But that one can be. People got to know that song. Speaking of coming to play a show with no rehearsal, that is a scary one to do. Even knowing that I know it, I'm always terrified. Because there's a couple of those little things you got to remember. You know, like
these are all pretty relatively deep cuts, but if you fucked that song up, you fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. There's not really a hiding place in that one if you fuck it up. Yeah. What else we got? Dancing Queen has been on playlists all over again lately. Yeah. I Want You Back is another, of course, a massive one. Rich Girl Sometimes.
Wow.
Again, right bride.
Gotta have the right family. Yeah.
Yeah. Teo Cruz, but it's a club banger called Dynamite. We gon' rock it out like it's dynamite. That song.
Yeah. All those songs have the same chord progression.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't Stop the Music, Rihanna. Shut Up and Dance is another one that is like every single wedding. Mr. Brightside is also like that.
That's a bad choice for a wedding song. I think
you got to put it late in. You got to put it late in the night when people are just going to be like, not thinking about them lyrics.
Right.
Don't think about them lyrics.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Pink, Raise Your Glass. Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Kesha, TikTok. I Want to Dance with Somebody is a big one now, all over again. Hand Clap, Fits in the Tantrums. I mean, I know the song, but I didn't until I had to learn it.
I don't know that song. What about Starship? I always liked playing that one.
I don't. Maybe I know the song, Starship, but not by name. Who is it?
It has that same chord progression. It is a lady artist. What is her name?
Let's see.
Nicki
Minaj.
Nicki
Minaj.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the one I just found. Yep. Yeah, I don't know that song. I can't say I've played it.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Let's see. I got a couple left on this list. Toxic, Britney Spears, which again is like a
fucking really fun.
I mean, it kind of works as a wedding song. Yeah. I love that. I love that song.
Who produced
Sucker,
whoever
Jonas
produced
Brothers?
that song is a genius.
Oh yeah, that's such an all-time undeniable banger for sure. Jonas Brothers, Sucker, Portugal the Man, Feel It Still, and Ed Sheeran, Shape of You. And that rounds out this particular list. But I think that was just like, new songs. This is a list of just like new songs or songs that they had a segue that I needed to learn.
Right.
So this is not a complete list, but we did more than 20, I think.
Wow. Well, that concludes this portion. Well, that was fun. I mean, how many songs do you think you could, without reference, if you showed up, like I have these fucking nightmares all the time, right? I had a nightmare that I was in Oasis, like I got the Oasis gig. They were having a reunion. The problem is I don't like Oasis. I think they're
Sounds
overrated.
like a problem, yeah.
Some good songs. There's some good songs. I don't like, but show me the good records. And in my nightmare, it's showtime, and we didn't rehearse.
Yeah.
I was expected to learn the songs, but I don't like them and I don't care, so I didn't. And then all of a sudden, here we are, and I'm like, fuck, I really fucked up.
Oasis is at least a little easier to just like follow along and kind of fake it till you make it, at least, you know.
But I'm not a drummer. Like,
oh, you're saying, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
But on bass, it's definitely, or guitar. Well, guitar is probably tougher to get away with, but at least
I
on
would
bass,
say.
you could chase the root note a little, and
Right.
like probably the average person
Maybe feel it.
wouldn't be like, get a load of this fucking guy missing all the notes or whatever. But on drums, yeah. I mean, I can get away with it. Also, cover bands, drummers in cover bands, very, very, very often just don't really care either. You know, the amount they're only learning the details that everyone's like, you got to get those hits, Tommy, you got to make sure you hit those hits. But if there's a lot, I've seen a lot of them, for whatever reason. Right,
you got to hit the fill in Hotel California. Don't fuck
that's
that
what
up.
that's what I'm into it for. Like, if I'm going to do these gigs, like, I mean, I'm not trying to spend a lot of extra time that I'm not necessarily getting paid for, but if I'm doing it, I'm doing it to like represent the song, like faithfully, to some degree faithfully. I mean, it might be that they have a different a band has a different treatment than the original. And of course that's one thing, but for the most part, if it's a gig with no rehearsal, I know that if I play the things as they are on the record, everybody on stage is going to be way more comfortable.
Right.
They're not going to be like, what was that thing you just did? Like every, minute, which is what I feel like a lot of band drummers and cover bands they're just doing them. And then they're just like catching hits a little bit, but it's not, we're not there to like fill your aural fantasy, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like we're not like, oh, I love this song, man, that part. Like that I want people to get that feeling,
Don't you love it when a band sends you a YouTube link of them performing live with shitty audio and they're like, here's our arrangement of the song, learn it.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I can't tell what the drums are doing.
Fuck you very much.
Yeah. Oh, good. It's a backbeat. That's the only thing I can tell right now. Like, you want me to get this just like it is? You don't have a real recording?
Yep. Sweet.
Sometimes you have to have those like I am past like, well past being the person who's like, oh, okay, and then doesn't say anything. Like, right. I will definitely be like, your expectations are not. We're not in line here. Like, I can't do what you want if I can't hear a single thing on the drum kit articulated except for a rim shot on the snare drum. Like, that's not enough for me.
It's not?
No, sorry.
Oh, hey, let's get started.
Okay. Didn't we do something together?
let's talk about specifically you, not just obtusely you.
Okay.
But, where are you from?
I am from southeastern Connecticut.
Okay.
So a little town called Niantic. But what I usually say is that I'm from New London, because that's a place that some people have heard of.
Right.
So
they're like, oh, London?
Yeah. No, the new one. It's the other one. It's the new one. And
the better American one.
Right. Yeah. First of all, American. Second of all, new. But so what happens often is I say this and then people forget that they're thinking of New Haven. Oh, no, New London. Yeah. That's where Yale is. No. But what New London does have is Coast Guard Academy. Across the street is one of the most expensive liberal arts colleges in the country, called Connecticut College. Also sometimes mostly called Conn College. Small school. And actually, the bass player in Such Gold, one of my bands, went to Con, and I never met him when he went there. I saw his band play on stage, saw a bunch of Con college kids come out who never come to any other shows. You'll never see them out until, their friend's band is playing at the club. And so I just watched like a bunch of college kids like crowd surfing in a space that was way too small, yelling about this band that they loved, Shake the Baron. And then I never met John until we were both in Australia on the other side of the world when I was playing in Shai Hulud and he was in Such Gold. And so we met in Australia and then like made this whole connection. Like we're like, oh shit. Like we're like on the other opposite absolute other corner of the planet. But like we both actually like spent a lot of time going to the same bar in the same place and have mutual friends and know a bunch of the same people. So yeah, Con College. This is also, New London is also where Pfizer came in and essentially created the conditions for a Supreme Court case. It's the eminent domain Supreme Court case where the symbol of it is a little pink house. It was the only house left in this entire area on the river that they bulldozed so Pfizer could move in, but there was like a couple houses left and this little old lady in a pink house. And it's, so that's another thing New London's known for. It was also burned down by Benedict Arnold.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was a great guy.
He was. He's so misunderstood. They do a thing every year. They do a thing every year now called the burning of Benedict Arnold, where they burn him in effigy. It's actually more lighthearted sounding more lighthearted than it sounds. But
it sounds dark as fuck.
It sounds real dark. Yeah. No, but it's, yeah, I guess it's not. I actually haven't been to one. But he's from a town 20 minutes north on the Connecticut River called Norwich. And his father-in-law was in the British Navy. He was in the, colonial. And his wife essentially slowly over time, and his father-in-law slowly picked at him. And then he wasn't getting promoted and he wanted promotion. And that's essentially what happened is he flipped because he deserved a better life. And so that's how it happened. So
he got a better gig.
He got a better gig. And then he sailed up the river with his better gig to his hometown and burned down New London on the way. It was one of the first things he did.
I might fuck this up, but right next to where I live is this little town called Kinderhook. And Kinderhook is where Martin Van Buren is from.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And also in this little town, I swear, is the Benedict Arnold house. And he was injured in combat and took respite there. Like he was nursed there. Some fucking sympathizer.
Some simp. Some fucking simp. Some Benedict Arnold simp.
That concludes our history lesson for the day, children.
So I'm from New London. That's what I say. Because also that's where, I played. I mean, that's like the cultural capital of that part of Connecticut. And that's where most of the shows are happening, pretty much. So that's where I say I'm from. That's where all my musical things from my hometown were revolved around New London anyway. So,
and how far is New London from the city?
It is 2 hours flat if there is no traffic and you can go whatever speed you want.
What train line goes up there? Is it
There's Metro North that leaves from Grand Central goes all the way to New Haven. And then in New Haven, you have to change trains to that line is called Shoreline East.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just it's just a weird, like little squirrely little Connecticut line that doesn't get enough money or, help. But
there was absolutely enough train line to get you from there into the city, and you were connected enough to be able to get into trouble as a kid.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I
So
went to
that's
college in
nice.
Danbury, Connecticut. So I was, you know, the same kind of thing. There's a train line down to Norwalk, I think, and then you transfer to MTA
Right.
to get the rest of the way.
Do you tell me about how you came to be a drummer? Was it your first musical instrument?
No. Well, so yes, it was the first thing that I bonded with anyway.
Right.
So in so in kindergarten, or maybe it was for after school first grade, there was another kid in the same after school program, and we did a show and tell on a Friday, like before getting out for the weekend or something. And this other friend of mine, he brought in a snare drum and he brought it up and he showed it to everybody and he started playing whatever, you know, he wasn't like showing us anything he learned. He was just kind of going, ah, and just playing a lot of notes. And it was awesome to me. I was like, oh, this is, because I could, whatever he was trying to do, I felt like I could hear what he was trying to say as a child. So that was when I was like, oh, that is so cool. And then like a few years of bothering my parents and after that. So I think I started in fourth grade. I took some lessons at the end of third grade, and I started school band in fourth grade. And then we
That's
moved
a
in
disappointing
sixth grade.
experience,
Yeah.
right? You're just playing the fucking snare drum.
The most
you're
exciting
like,
thing that happened was when I got a part that had a cymbal and a snare drum. And like, I didn't know how to play drum set yet, but I looked at the music and I went, and I heard what I was doing and I was like, oh, yes, this is what I want, you know. But cello, I actually also started on cello around the same time.
Oh, wow.
I had said trumpet, and then I think they had too many people signing up for trumpet. At this point, I lived in Hartford as well. There were a lot of like kids who were Latin who's like were connected to trumpet, and like everybody wanted to play the goddamn trumpet. So there wasn't room.
Right.
And so then I've said, all right, I guess cello. I don't know. Sure, cello. So that lasted a year. I never really got like, you know, I got familiar with how the thing works though. And I felt like I was doing okay, but I just wasn't that interested in it. So drums went out.
Clearly you've bonded with the drums by now. And I thought it was interesting that the choice of words that you used when you talked about seeing that kid play in kindergarten, where you said you thought you could understand what he was trying to say, which implies communication.
Yes.
And that's a thing that I think a lot of kids, I mean, when you're starting to learn, you're just trying to sort of mimic or reproduce. Do you think that you actually felt that way in the moment, or are you recalling that and sort of
recalling
translating
that, like,
it to now feelings?
I have no idea what was actually in his mind, but I felt like I was getting, like, a language was being spoken to me that I understood. And I was like, how do I understand this? I don't understand. I never learned this language. Like, how can I understand what he's saying? That's what it felt like. Anyway.
That's amazing. Was there a lot of music being played in your house?
Yes, but my parents certainly love music, but they weren't the kind of and they would play music pretty often. But it wasn't like necessarily a focus of their lives. It was like, by the time that I was aware of what was going on, first of all, I'm the product of a second marriage, and I have a couple of half siblings that are 10 years older than me. So my parents were older than most of my friends' parents.
Right.
My dad was 41 when I was born, same age I am now. So they were in a different sort of place with music by the time that I was like becoming aware enough. So So what I got more from them was like the remnants of what their former lives, the like not even remnants is, I don't mean to be dismissive, but that's what I was getting. I was like
You were
their
getting the
connection to
James
music
Taylor's
was,
greatest hits.
and yeah, and there were things that were coming out that they were into around that time. The main one I can think of is Graceland. Graceland
Sure.
was something that they really connected to and loved, and I heard all over the house when that one came out. But there weren't a million of those things that were current for the time. There were a bunch of things that they played, but they weren't, you know, they were a little older, 70s, 60s stuff.
Do you think that Graceland absorbed into your subconscious in any way?
Completely.
When I hear you play drums, I don't remember how you came onto my radar. However, when I first saw you playing, I was like, "Oh wow, this is great. I can watch this. I can listen to this. This is good, like dynamic, powerful drumming." And then there's a sophistication, because I mean, the drumming that I hear you doing mostly is like punk and sort of like thrash punk.
Yeah, that's what I've been.
And
lately.
It's like, you know, real forward leaning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a sophistication sort of happening that's not just, you know, brutal forearms. and I'm curious if you think that it was embedded in you, if that sort of natural instinct was embedded in you from that record, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Or if
for
it's
sure,
stuff
I
that
think
you picked
so.
up along the way.
I think so, but you know, it's funny because that I didn't remember to say this first, or at least, you know, following up on the Graceland part. But once they saw that I was really interested in music, that sort of like began like a second type of way they would try to expose me. So for example, my dad really loved jazz. He loved jazz. He loved, there's a few artists specifically that he really loved. He really loved Ahmad Jamal on piano. He really liked, oh my God, what's the name? Well, first Brubeck. And then Jerry Mulligan, he was a fan of as well. And there's a few other smatterings like that around. So he, you know, in like sixth or seventh grade, it was like right after I got my first drum set, he started showing me more jazz stuff. And I was like, what is this? I don't hear like, I think I heard a snare drum for like a second. Where's the snare drum? Like, I don't hear any of this, right. You know? But, so that, and like Neville Brothers and the meters specifically was a thing that I really, really locked on. He had like a greatest of the Neville Brothers, like 2 CD set, and he'd put it on, and anytime a meters song came on, I'd be like, this is awesome.
It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, pretty great stuff. So between like the 60s sort of like folk, 60s, 70s folky stuff, I mean, they also, I remember my dad loved Sly. He never played it for me, but he talked about it all the time. So that's what I mean when I say like their connection to music was different than mine, in that like my dad could know that he loved Sly from back in the day, but it wasn't necessarily important for him to get the record now and put it on. It was enough for him to have it as a memory.
It's like that high school buddy.
Yeah, for sure. It's yeah. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of diverse stuff they were showing me. They didn't know shit about punk, or metal or any of that stuff. I mean, that was pretty much all me and my, you know, friends from high school or middle school.
Come on your radar? Were you already playing, or was that something that you feel like you were drawn to because you were drumming and you heard it and you were like, that's fucking incredible drumming?
My exposure to punk was almost single-handedly. Now, maybe it would have happened a different way without this person, but it was almost single-handedly due to a friend who I met in high school. a friend named Andrew who just was like, well, we had a math class together or something. And he just, it's the kind of thing that never happens to you as an adult anymore. Like the kid sitting behind you in class is like, hey, so what's your deal? What do you like? Tell me, do you like music? I really love punk. Like if that happens to you as an adult, you're like, bye. I don't know what this is, but in high school, I was like, punk. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of it. And then like, basically he was like, okay, well, I'm a guitar player and I really want to start a band and you play drums. So like, I'm basically just taking you and I'm just going to force feed you a bunch of stuff. I mean, he didn't say it like that, but that's what happened. Before that,
what kind of punk was he into? What
he was into he was into the 70s stuff. He thought of anything that could be closely related to, or that anyone might use the word hardcore to describe. He was like, not about it. Yeah.
Right.
So he really loved the Clash and Sex Pistols and Buzzcocks, and we would talk about that kind of stuff. Songs would be made because I would, we were at practice and he's like, well, I don't have anything new, but like, maybe we can just write something. Name a chord. Name another chord. That's kind of how and then he knew how to make it sort of sound like a punk song, unless of course it was out of key. And then he would tell us, pick a different chord.
Right.
But before that, I in middle school and stuff, I was really getting into, like, right at the end of middle school, I was really getting into Tool and, I mean, I had like a few things that I really listened to and tried to play along. But I picked up drum set in like 7th grade. So by the end of 8th grade, I was just starting to actually have taste, or the first semblance of a taste. And then, but basically I got into punk because of Andrew and he just was like, we're doing a band. Okay.
Those first couple years are super formative.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely.
And some of those habits, no matter how hard you try, like the feel that you cop in those early days and weeks, months and years, you can't shake no matter what. Maybe momentarily, but when I started playing guitar and I was listening to fucking Dokken and Rat.
Yeah.
So there, no matter what, I could be playing a Tom Petty song and there's just a little bit, no matter how my amp is dialed in, I could be playing this Telecaster, doesn't matter. There's just a little bit of that in there.
It's not the hands are the biggest one, you can do whatever you want to the amp or the guitar, but that doesn't change this.
Do you find that with your drumming?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I'll note, one of the biggest places I notice it coming out is like, it'll be the kind of thing where, like I'm playing a song that like I may know, but I may not know it 100% inside and out yet. And it'll be like when I'm doing a fill to change a part or something like that, or in the first couple beats after a fill, like coming back to the groove. Like I might finish the fill and spike the cymbal and like, there it is. There it is. And now, so the next couple beats, I'm like going, oh yeah. Wait. No, not that.
Right.
More this.
That wasn't the bell.
Or the fit, or, cause I won't be thinking about the fill. I'll be thinking about the next part. So my muscle memory just does a thing. Right. And so then, I might be listening back and be like, well, I don't know why you did a peel there on that Marvin Gaye song. That's weird. Oh, that's the punk part. No. I mean that I got, in high school jazz band, I got hit with that stuff though. So I'm like, another drummer or somebody being like, that was a cool fill, but it had nothing to do with this song. I'm like, okay. All right,
in high school though, you were like, whatever, dude.
No, I wasn't though. That's the thing. I wasn't that high school kid. I was like the one that was like wanting to be good at everything and like be able to show like, okay, I'll do, especially in a musical context, that more so than anything.
Yeah. That was the
Yeah.
next question I was going to ask you, is that once you got into high school, you joined jazz band. So you continued your school education
Yeah,
with music.
Yeah, I had a lot of music education
Was
over the period.
there drum corps or any of that sort of
Yeah,
stuff?
I did marching band in high school all 4 years. Yeah.
I
Um,
fucking love drum corps.
yeah, it's a cool thing. Like you got to know how to watch it because for some, you know, I think in some or how to listen. In some instances, there are people who are like, "This is cheesy," and you're not
Nah,
wrong,
man.
but there's more going on than that. You know, there's a lot
Yeah,
going on there. Yeah. Yeah,
drum
I did a
lines
lot of
are
time with rudiment.
incredible.
And when I went to college, my professor, I studied classical percussion in college, and my professor was the um, first. Was he first chair? I think he was. Well, anyway, he played for New Haven Symphony Orchestra and was like a former upstate New York rudimental drum champion.
Wow.
So like I have the rudimental thing in my hands and stuff has always been like in pretty good shape for the most part. Yeah. My feet I've had issues with, but it's probably a product of like playing a lot of Rage Against the Machine and punk stuff, and then like getting to college and then being like, your foot is too fucking loud, bro. Take some sandbags off your ankle and can you play with some delicacy? So I got like, I was able to do that, but like I never had like foot technique. Talk about hand technique all the time. I figured out how to do shit on drum
Yeah.
set. Like I had a teacher, but a drum set teacher, but it was on and off. And in the beginning, I was just teaching myself. Like a good example of this is when I learned how to do a double stroke on a bass drum pedal. I was just listening to Silverchair. The first Silverchair record was out, and it was hot. And
Yeah.
I had heard Led Zeppelin, but for whatever reason, like I had not like gravitated to the Bonham double kick or double foot.
Yeah.
It hadn't become like something that I heard and went, oh wow. But for some reason, Silverchair was probably just time and place. And that whole first record, it's like constantly before a snare drum. It's always every time. And I was like, at the time, I thought it was the coolest sounding thing. When I listen to that record now, I'm like, those don't sound great. But at the time, I was like, I have to learn how to do that. And the way I learned to do it was I just twitched at the pedal until something happened. And then I was like, oh, I think that was, try to do it again. And then there's another half an hour of twitching at the pedal until I can get it to do it again. So I didn't know what I was learning. I couldn't tell you how I was even producing the thing. I was just like, it feels kind of like this.
Right.
Yeah, there it goes. So what I know now is that I learned how to do, the way I learned how to do it was called heel toe. Basically just slam your heel down and then roll onto the front of your foot for the second stroke. But I had to do that in order to play double strokes. So I never learned how to do like any proper heel up with like constant notes until I was like out of high school. I mean, out of college, and like trying to play stuff and being like, what's wrong with my foot?
What about your left foot? This is a thing that about drummers that, you know, everyone wants to be a good drummer. Every fucking one. I don't care what anyone says. Everyone wishes that they were a good drummer. And that is the way every band practice should dissolve, is everyone thinks they get a turn on the drum set. And then you're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Nobody else can work their left foot. Like I can do a hi-hat, you know, whatever, the little thing like this, but I can't keep time with my left foot. And that is a mark of a good drummer. If you can keep actual time with your left foot, as far as I'm concerned. How do you learn how to do that? And when did that happen? Because it sounds like footwork wasn't your primary focus.
Well, let's put it this way. I would get assignments that would have sophisticated footwork things in them, but I generally was able to do it without, I mean, I not necessarily couldn't do it right away, but was able to learn the thing and do it without having an advanced technique. A lot of the stuff that I was learning in high school when I was, and then again in college was some basic coordination things like, it's just sort of like learning how to break down the different elements that are going on in any drum beat. And like maybe how to like keep the same thing in the feet, but learn how to play a different thing in the hands. And then like just keep doing that. Like, and every time you learn one set of independence, like one little nugget of a thing, maybe it's only a measure long or 2 measures long, but every time you learn one that you didn't have before, it makes the next one easier to learn. It'll have some little bit of coordination that you just learned for the last thing that you'll have again in the next, or, you know, in the next subsequent things that you're going to learn. And it doesn't feel like that when you're doing it, but that's what I experienced is that if I had an assignment where, for example, I had like, let's say it's just the same thing I was just talking about. The feet are just going to do one thing, but I maybe have to learn 4 different hand things that I can do over that, or 5 or 6. The first 1 or 2, the hardest. The next ones, even though the difficulty is going up, in some ways I felt like it was getting easier because I was, you know, it's like learning the alphabet. So one little piece of coordination, like, I don't know. Yeah. Doing this. So one solo and then one where your hands are together. Let's just say that one. When I learn that, it's going to come back over and over again every time I have that instance of this move. So because that's easier, I can put more brain power into the stuff I don't know. And then eventually, but you know, it doesn't feel like that when you're doing it. So that is part of the answer to the left foot hi-hat thing. There's a lot of things, a lot of coordination things that when you learn how to do it with just 2 hands, it makes it easier to imagine doing it between a hand and a foot because, you know, this thing with 2 hands, well, maybe I'm just going to do that, but with my foot doing part of it and, you know, my hand doing the other part. It's still the same coordination. It's a different limb, but the system is the same.
Can you dance?
I can dance. I think good is completely a matter of opinion because usually when I'm dancing, I am not doing it seriously. I'm usually acting like a fucking idiot and I'm like just doing some weird dumb shit and looking too directly at people and trying to get them to, you know, laugh or something. So yeah. So I mean, I can dance. Good. Depends on the objective.
Debatable.
Debatable. But yeah, so that's kind of what happens. Like the main thing is you learn a basic drum beat with your 3 limbs. And if you want to start learning how to add the hi-hat, the simplest thing to do in the beginning is probably just play the hi-hat on every beat. And every time you learn, you take a beat you already knew and you figure out how to add the hi-hat on every beat with your left foot. Every time you do that, the next one gets easier and easier.
Yeah. So you had a lot of stage experience in school band. So
yeah,
performing like concert, whatever holiday concerts and whatever programs you guys were operating and studying for in front of the school, and probably there were evening programs for the parents and families. Yep. That sort of prepares you for a lot, right?
Yeah.
Gets you ready for playing in any sort of ensemble situation, even in a rock band.
Mm-hmm.
Strangely.
To some degree. Yeah. It's still, you know, the first couple times that I went out on stage to play drum set, it was different type of nerves because first of all, I gave more of a fuck. Second of all, there's not, 50 kids on stage. Right. So it's just you. And I'm the loudest one. And I already know at that age that, like, I can't fuck up.
Right.
They can probably fuck up. I already knew that like I was going to be so mortified if I fucked up, and it didn't have to do with like social pressure at all. It just had to do with like, I just understood that like the whole thing could fall apart. Maybe that's from all the education I got, but yeah, that first couple of times it was like mouth is suddenly dry, heart is pounding. And you know, I never had a stage fright thing where I like had to go. I was always able to just be like, you know, as though I could push myself out the door, I could always like kind of just get on stage. Like if I, you know, as soon as somebody says like my name, I'm like, well, it's too late now. You gotta
go. Specifically, do you remember the first time you played rock drums at a show, and can you tell me what that show was?
It was a high school variety show.
Nice.
And I'm trying to remember what year the first one was. I do have a memory of I think I played. Yeah. There may have been one before this, but the one that I remember as the first one is, we played like a Deftones cover.
Nice.
And I remember being really nervous about that for some reason. Can't totally remember why, but probably just because it was one of the first things where I was like, this is what I want to do. And nobody
that dude
else
is a killer drummer.
And he is a great drummer. I couldn't stop listening to, I was continue on this topic of the education thing. Then for 2 summers, I went to music camp in Maine. And mostly classical, but I did also, there was, jazz drum set too. And, that summer is how, another camper who, this kid from New Jersey. So this is another, punk, like another person who brought me deeper into the punk thing was this trombone player from Jersey who was all about Suicide Machines and ska punk and Bigwig and Deftones and then he got me into Deftones. Yeah, from Jersey in 1996 or 7. So yeah. But that was another one. And I heard the Deftones from him. And then I like got the CD when I got home, and that was the first time that I just sat down and where I put on a thing that I bought with my own money. That's not the first time that I did that, but it was the first time that I sat there with my headphones and my Discman and I didn't do anything. I just sat there and I was just on my bed. Like,
so 96, was that cool. Adrenaline or was that around the
It was Adrenaline was the first one that I heard. So it might've been 97 I don't remember if it was 6 or 7 that particular summer, but yeah. I mean, I guess we could just look and see if Around the Fur was out yet. Cause Around the Fur came out like, I think I was in 10th grade, something like that.
That I still listen to that record regularly.
It's great. It's great. It sounds a lot better than Adrenaline. I mean, Adrenaline had me at hello, but, I mean, also Adrenaline sounds weird and maybe bad in a way, but like, it has there's a serious charm factor for some reason. I think cause it just doesn't sound like
it sounds like it
else.
Was recorded on ADATs.
It does. But it was Terry Date. So like, it's a little lo-fi. Like it's very fizzy. Like the distortion on Adrenaline is so like Mesa Boogie fizzy to me. Like it's a weird, I don't know, but Around the Fur is like production is everything. That's a different story. Yeah.
No, just the first 3 records just went like this.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Yep. I think of that sort of the same way that I think of now when I think of the second Shai Hulud full length, that within Blood Ill Tempered, sounds fucking weird. As an adult, when I go to listen to it, I'm like, guitars are so weird sounding. And I've talked about this with Fox and all those guys as well, but they feel the same way. They're like, it did not come out the way we wanted. And they've been talking about getting it remixed or remastered or both for a while. But the charm is still there somehow. that time and
Right.
place thing didn't change just because like I can hear like different frequency ranges and identify them now. I still
Right.
put on Blood Ill Tempered and I'm like, yeah, that shit.
Side note, someone, I just saw a link posted on Instagram of an in-store in-store performance from the Deftones in 1996, and it is the fucking best thing. I'll send
Damn.
it to you. I'll go
Yeah,
and
please
find
do.
it and send it to you. It's unbelievable.
Huh. Yeah,
Recommended.
I'd be very stoked to check that out. Yeah.
Just young.
That'd be full on time travel for me, probably.
Young, and everyone is like absolutely full of energy, going ape shit in a record store. Great. I think they cut the performance short too. Do you remember the first time you walked on stage and you felt completely... Do you get... Well, I guess before I ask you this, do you get any sort of stage nerves before you play now, or do you have any pre-show quirks?
I don't generally get pre-show nerves. Sometimes when it's a festival or something and I'm like looking out and there's a bunch of people, sometimes I'll be like, that's a bunch of people, huh? But it doesn't usually go past that. If anything, it comes up, it just manifests differently. So it's not necessarily anxiety about being in front of people. It might be anxiety about feeling like, because I never feel like I know the material well enough. No matter no matter how many times, how long I've played, like maybe, okay, if it's Such Gold and it's songs or Halud and it's songs I've been playing for years now, that might be different. But if I don't have like a 3-year relationship with a song, I might be going out there and being like nervous about like remembering to do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
But that's where again, it's like that first example I was describing where it's like, I know that if I fuck up, that's different. If
I've said it once, I've said it a million times. The most important person in the band is the drummer.
That's what I heard. At least for the executing of songs, if not, maybe not the writing of them. Some drummers
Everyone else can
that.
fuck up, but if the drummer fucks up, it's a showstopper.
And like, if the drummer fucks up, there's a very decent chance that the audience won't even realize that the drummer fucked up. It may just be that like the recovery of the other members in the band may give the impression that they fucked up.
Right.
And then you got to hear about that later from somebody.
There are all those cues from popular culture, and I've made reference to this before, where, and this is fucking terrible because it happens at festivals because festival sound sucks. Mm-hmm. So many dicks. Yeah. You walk up to the microphone, hello, and it feeds back. And what is on an after school special? You're taught this at a young age. How do you know a band sucks? Well, the PA feeds back. That's how you know they suck. Terrible.
This is unfair. We have to change the education system in this country.
That's right. Teach the people what feedback is.
Yeah, feedback is not the people on the stage usually. I mean, yeah, maybe they got to turn an amp down, but it's not feeding back because they suck.
Maybe it does, but
it can be.
But to what you were saying, there's no feeling like being on autopilot with music, so that you can feel like you are just subconsciously moving through the song, right?
Yeah, right. And not thinking about hands or feet or whatever. It's happening. It's just happening. Like it's happening to you and with you and through you.
For people who are listening, I think I see the optics on who listens. It's a bunch of you and me. But for people who are not musicians, because there are some non-musicians, I would liken that sensation to walking into a dark room in your own home that you know very well. And you can walk all the way across the room with 100% confidence and turn the light switch on
Mm-hmm.
without looking, and
Yeah.
just know exactly where the switch is. Boom.
Right. And exactly what things to avoid stubbing your toe on.
Right. Um, there's no better feeling.
Yeah.
Do, do you remember the first time that you walked on stage and you were like, and you were, I had 100% actual confidence, not false confidence, or young,
Nope.
full of piss and vinegar?
I don't think I could pin it down. I think because I'm like from a young age of there's a certain amount of neuroses that like fixation, like really zooming in on details, and it's sort of a default position, and so because of that, it's really rare that, like, if I feel myself being super confident, I'll talk myself right out of it. Like, so some of that is probably because of what I just described. But some of it's also just like, I don't know if it's because of this or if it's just because of the type of people my parents were, but both my parents were therapists, and they, from a young age, they were like showing me how to look at the 5 sides of any topic. So
Right.
I mean, maybe it's not because of that. Maybe it's just like that mode of thinking that they have. Well, I'm their fucking kid, so I probably got it too. So I think that's what generally happens, is like, it's the opposite of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you don't know how stupid you are, so you don't know what you don't know. I know I am acutely aware and probably think that there are more things that I don't know than there actually are. But that's sort of where that tends to be the headspace that I operate from.
Only because you brought it up. Your parents were both professionals, and you went into creative arts. You said you went to school and studied classical percussion. Were they like enjoy working at the gas station?
No, they
They were
weren't.
super cool.
Yeah, they were incredibly cool. And at the time, I was certainly aware that I had friends who were musicians whose parents were like not supportive or were dismissive, right? The classic line you just said, the
Sure.
enjoy flipping burgers or whatever. But not all, it took, I had to get a little older. I mean, I was aware of that, but I don't think I was aware of the real difference between how they encouraged me and supported me and the average supportive parent, because they were way past that. So like, one of the things that was happening in high school was that they were getting raped by managed care for like a decade. The managed care HMOs and stuff were just saying like, oh, this is what you charge? No, you don't. We're only going to pay this. And then it kept not keeping up with inflation and decreasing over time. So they constantly were going out and learning a new skill to add to the repertoire. So one of them in this particular time frame was an abilities, like a series of tests to help like establish what you're good at, what kind of thinking, what kind of learning, those sort of things. It's called the Highlands Ability Battery. But anyway, they were really into this, and they were
that test sounds terrifying to me. Like, I don't want to fucking know the answer to that question for me.
It's very interesting. It's actually so unlike some of those other ones where like some of those other ones, it feels like the conclusion, it's sort of like rounds off who you are way too much. So like the
Right.
Myers-Briggs is the one that most people know, where you get like these, the series of letters that describes your personality type, and it sort of pigeonholes people. I mean, there's valuable things there, but of course people get left out. The Highlands thing is not like that. Everything's measured on a percentile based against everyone else who's taken it. So it's really about the combination of things. And so all this research, without getting too far into the weeds, certain combinations of different scores will make you, will indicate that you're predisposed in one way or another to certain types of work, certain ways of executing your job, all that kind of thing. So, but at any rate, my parents were, part of the whole thrust with this is that they were starting to get a little bit more interested in a life coaching angle. And they wanted to help people like figure out why they felt like shit at their job. They wanted to, why am I not fulfilled? Everything sucks. I have a job that pays me and I hate my life, So they were doing all this and getting all this training at that time. And I think because I was in high school and I was really solidified. I mean, I knew early that I was going to be a musician. And they were just like, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, right, to everything. It wasn't like, indiscriminately. They weren't just right, like, hey, you do whatever you want. That whole cocaine thing sounds great. There was nothing like that. But, sure, as far as they were like, wow, this kid really seems to know what they want to do. And they're already like excelling, chomping at the bit to like do it. So they got the fuck out of the way. I mean, I think that's how they looked at it anyway. I mean, they did more than that, but I think that was their idea, was especially because they had a much better idea of what parents do to their kids.
It sounds like they got out of the way and got behind you and yeah, gave you the pushes you needed.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. It's in hindsight, it's pretty incredible. I posted awesome, something on a story about it the other day. Cause unfortunately my father died last year. But I posted something about, it doesn't even matter, but it was basically saying, I'm so happy my parents encouraged me to something. And I had like 5 people hit me back saying like, wow, I wish I fucking had those kind of parents, because mine were awful on this topic. Yeah. So I have a much better idea now of how huge it was.
Right. What was your experience like when you got to college and you were doing the classical percussion? Did you think that perhaps you would join an orchestra somewhere, a symphony orchestra, and do that? And did you do that at any point?
No. No. Right. This is a very good question, because part of the thing, it may have been related a little bit to how, like, my parents weren't, I mean, they both dabbled in music, but they didn't know what a professional musician's life really looked like. So they might have been able to help out with this if they knew what to look for. But I did classical percussion. I picked that as a choice of study because partly because I felt like I wasn't very good at jazz drum set, and that I was way better at this, the classical thing, like, or at least, some version of it. And I saw it accidentally also as more legit when I was like making the decision about which college to go to and what to study and like how to approach it. Like, for example, I didn't get a Bachelor of Arts. I got a Bachelor of Music. The Bachelor of Arts is like a little less intense course of study. But I was like, I want to do the most legit thing. And I wasn't seeing, like, I saw the jazz drum set as very legit. I just didn't think that I was very legit at it. even though like no one fucking is at that. I mean, there are kids who are really good, but like most everybody who goes to school to study music on drum set, most of them don't know, this is the constant theme of adulthood. No one knows what the fuck they're doing. No one ever knows what the fuck they're doing. It had more to do with your
confidence level in that arena.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I knew that I could excel at the classical percussion thing, but I didn't actually have any, I didn't really answer these questions for myself beforehand. Like the one you just asked me. Do I really want to join a symphony orchestra and like do that for a living? At some point in my junior year, maybe, my professor's son, one of his sons had just graduated from Hart School of Music at the University of Hartford. And he was back in town practicing to audition for professional ensembles. And so I came in one day, like on a weekend or something, and he was using one of the practice rooms, and, I was like, oh, okay, I won't bother you. And then, he said something about what he was doing, and he had a binder this thick, that's all excerpts from the Buffalo Symphony Orchestra that he was getting ready. These are all things that could potentially be called. Now, it's not as intimidating as that actually, but all I saw was a book this thick, and that, there's like a few things I know I'm going to have to play, but then there's going to be like 2 or 3 sight reading things, and you don't know what they're going to be. And as soon as he was describing that to me, even though I knew that that's how auditions worked, but because I was like, now it was like my 3rd year, I saw a real person who was not much older than me auditioning. It was much less abstract all of a sudden. And I was like, fuck, I don't want to do that. Oh no. Oh God, I don't want to do that at all. And like, so I wasn't a very good practicer for maybe that was part of the reason as well. And then I was like, I don't know, maybe musical theater or something. That's something I can do with this degree, right? But then I got out of college and I started teaching drum lessons and had some friends in punk bands be like, all right, let's go on the road. Okay, I guess that's what I'll do now. Which, I mean, that was what I was more interested in doing. But I should have, in hindsight, I would have decided to go to school for jazz instead. But I got things out of the classical thing that have become extremely important, that like are easy to see now as, important things that I got that I could not have predicted how I would use in an adult professional, life. So I'm very happy about it. I don't have a regret, but if I could do it again, I would have been a drum set major.
Right. On the surface, being in an ensemble orchestra and being in a van in a touring punk band seem like drastically different lifestyles because of the presentation. But in truth,
and also the presence of money,
right?
Any money.
But the truth is, they're not that much different. Like there's a lot of shenanigans in an orchestra. You get that many people together.
Yeah, I think people think of orchestra musicians, professional classical musicians, as like straight-laced people, and all you have to do is look like you're straight-laced.
Right.
Most of them ain't. I mean, I had a teacher in college who was, I was taking it was a music history class. It was some era. I think it was like Romantic era music, or no, it was 20th century music, and he was an extremely accomplished violinist. He was like ran the Manhattan String Quartet. He was like the violinist, the first violinist in that. Eric Lewis. A big deal. Like he is like a real name guy. It didn't take very long. I didn't have him for anything else. But so my first 2 years, I only saw the guy, I knew who he was, but I didn't have any relationship with him. But even by like the second semester, I was already hearing like wild fucking stories about this dude. Right. Wild stories. And then I had him as a teacher and I was like, this guy is awesome. He's so cool. This is great. He's not, I had it all wrong, you know?
Yeah, you don't have to be in X Games to have like wild, behind the scenes behavior or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
People are people.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what about the first time you got in a van and you left the state or is Connecticut a part of the tri-state area, or is that Jersey, New York?
That's Jersey, Connecticut, and New York.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give a fuck about Pennsylvania and the tri-state area. Fuck Pennsylvania.
Fuck out of
you
here.
Guys take terrible care of your roads. You should be ashamed of yourselves. This would be the quad states, but fuck your roads.
Yeah, no. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll keep it to a trilogy. Keep it to a try.
Do you remember the first time you got in a van and you were gone for, more than an overnighter, and the sense that you had happening?
So, not counting like high school band trips, one of the first times that I started to experience that was still actually in college, in like a school setting. There was a percussion ensemble, and every year in the spring, our professor would essentially set up a little mini tour, and we would go to like three different high schools usually. And we might come back, but we might, between performances, we might come back as Danbury, but we might not. Like we've also, just like moved on or had, different places that we stayed or whatever. So that was like, and I think that was all to sort of curate like this idea of what it means to be like a musician, a professional that does tour and does go on the road, like get a taste of this thing in a more controlled setting, formalized setting, and not going into, sticky, dirty punk clubs either. This is, so that was the first time. And I don't know. I also had like, I was, even from freshman year of college, I was going home at least for the first year or two, I was going home almost every weekend to gig with a punk band, or every other weekend. So I wasn't out for, several days in a row, like sleeping on floors, but I was getting on the train with like a bunch of gear. Like I remember at some point, the first time I did this, and it all seemed like it was going to be pretty easy. And I figured out pretty quickly, like, how hard it actually was to lug this shit around. But I also figured out at the same time, like, yeah, this is hard. I'll just put it down for a minute. Let's try again. Oh yeah, I can just keep going. So at some point I figured out that I was a tank, and I could just like, I would just pick up gear and go. It like, I guess that would have ruled me out of being a drummer if it wasn't true in the beginning, probably. But that set it up so that I knew that I could do it. Unless
you're a wildly successful drummer and you can hire
like instantly,
a roadie straight out of the gate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that's how I knew that I could like do the hardship part, was that like before I ever actually did it, it was just like, wow, this is really tiring. I'll put these down. All right, let's keep going. I just realized that. And since then I've also figured out that I put up with a lot of stuff that I don't need to because of that mentality. So that's what we're working on.
I think all young people, I mean, maybe it doesn't seem like so much anymore. And I don't want to, and this isn't an get off my lawn thing. This is like, that's great.
No, yeah. Yeah.
Seems like younger people don't put up with the shit that I put up with, certainly. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like the same things that you put up with, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I also did this stupid thing where like, I had my professor in college was a mentor. I had a private lesson instructor who was a mentor, but like that was it. I didn't really have mentors. Like I didn't go looking for them. It didn't occur to me that somebody who I enjoyed, who was older than me, could be a mentor. Like I didn't, that's probably my one single biggest regret, is not like going out and getting one, like when I left college. 'Cause there were a lot of things I learned took a lot longer because I didn't have somebody being like, this is how you do this thing, like this lifestyle. I wish I had done that.
Well, I wish I would have done that sooner. Also, tell me about some of the most encouraging post-college musical moments for you in your career trajectory, and some of the most discouraging.
Okay.
Because as musicians, we both know there are plenty of discouraging moments.
Yeah.
Let's limit that to there are probably more discouraging things. And, being a musician, and the will to be a musician is a war of attrition.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. So on the discouraging thing, okay, the first one that I can really think of is the first time that I figured out that just like, oh, we're playing this show, this is an important show, we need people to like us, I'm going to play, I'm just going to bend my will and play the best show. That doesn't work. It never, for me, it never worked. Like, maybe if I was more of a competitive, person, like if I had that kind of competitive personality type, like people like that, often it seems like if they look at something hard enough that they can do it. And it just doesn't work that way for me. So the first time I figured that out and I got very disappointed in the process, that was a rough one at first. It was like, wow, it doesn't matter how much you give a shit. Like you can't, it's not just going to go well because you want it to.
You can't make people care because you care.
But also I didn't play that well. I also played badly on that show. So, and I think I pretty quickly figured out that mentality was contributing to, the bad playing.
Do you think it was your elevated expectation was,
And I was becoming too static mentally. I was becoming too fixed and not open and adjusting and listening and being in tune with everything that's going on. I was just trying to make things happen instead of, curating.
There's some
real
hippie shit going. There's some real hippie shit in playing music. It's almost like it's like when you watch an amazing basketball team play. It looks like a performance.
Right? Yeah.
Against the greatest defense.
Right. And in that situation, you have to have some level of, I guess what we're talking about is the ability to turn on a focus. And I just sort of misallocated how I was trying to do that for a period of time. But yeah, that's what it is. It's, they have plays that they practice, they practice these set pieces all the time too. So sometimes it does look like a performance for that reason. And then obviously shit always goes wrong. So you're adjusting, improvising on the fly. But another disappointing one that pops into my mind is just like travel problems. Just travel problems, and how bad it can get, how wrong things can go, and how one little change can just snowball. So the worst version of that happened for me when I was playing in Halud. It was a European tour, and we were supposed to go. I think it was the last gig, and I think we were supposed to play in Greece, and we were in Rome, and we got dropped off at the airport very early, how a tour will do this to you. Cool. You got out of the gig at 3 a.m. You're at the airport now at 4 a.m. Your flight is at 8 a.m. Do you have to be there that early? No, but your ride's taking you there right now.
It's almost better to sleep at the airport in those situations.
I agree too, when it's just a couple hours like that. But what ended up happening was a lot of sleeping in airports for many, many, many hours. The promoter, the Greek promoter, was sketchy all of a sudden when it turned out that they didn't, they used a budget airline and they didn't pay for bags. Fuck are you doing? We've got merch, we've got instruments, we've got personal. I mean, it's a lot of bags. So it was going to be like $2,500 or $3,000 to pay for the baggage. Once cause there's too many now or whatever, and also cause you booked a cheap airline. So I don't understand how you don't know that this is going to happen, that bags cost a lot more on a cheap airline. So, overall. So the promoter was like, I don't know what to tell you. And we had like $2,000 on hand at the moment that we had access to.
Right.
So we could, and also we were, fuck this guy. Like, we're not dipping it in our pocket now, 'cause this is preposterous. So we didn't do the show, but what ended up happening is we were supposed to go to Greece, and then we were going to be there for like a day and a half or something before we flew back. But then we were flying into Milan to make a connecting flight to go back to the States. So when you take the Greece part out of it, now the only option is to go 7 hours north to Milan and sit there for a day and a half or 2 days, or so. It was some obnoxious amount of time. And so we didn't get to do that.
Great place to hang out for 2 days.
No, we went into town and it was fine a little bit, but there was also some very sketchy stuff. I mean, just the sociology, the Lord of the Fliesness of seeing how how the homeless folks operate in the airport. They all have carry-on bags, because if you don't have a carry-on bag, they're not allowed to kick you out. If you have one, they're not allowed to kick you. The security is, you could be a passenger. So you could just see them just working the system like the whole time. That was the best part of it, honestly. It was like the sociology of seeing how it works here. But everything else about it.
Did you guys have to hang out at the airport for 2 days?
We hung out at the airport for a long time. I think we got a hotel one night, but then everyone at the end of it was like, well, I want to go home with some money.
Right.
So we didn't. So, we chilled on as many things as we could because we suddenly had expenses we weren't planning on.
Oh,
yeah, it was brutal. It fucking sucks.
Tour budgeting is
also
awful.
Finding somebody to even drive us to Milan. We didn't have anybody lined up, and we had to find somebody luckily we found somebody in short order, but their only window was ASAP. So then we just were stranded in Milan for 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah, that was not fun. Okay. Encouraging. Should we switch to encouraging experiences?
Let's do that.
Honestly, the one that I keep coming back to the most is all the Uber community things about punk. All of the times where okay, yeah, there's people at the show. They love it. Okay, that's okay. But then the punk thing, that's probably too broad, but when you get that in a punk show, you get a lot of other stuff with it. If you get a bunch of people showing up to, some other kind of show, yacht rock. I don't know. Let's just say yacht rock. They might be there for the Steely Dan of it all, but it doesn't mean that that group of people is going to bring like potluck food. It doesn't mean that they're going to like, oh shit, you guys don't have a place to stay. We're going to pull out all the stops. It doesn't mean that they're going to be, you know, the amount of times that like I'm playing a hall show and the people are just like essentially accidentally shoving my band members into the drum kit, and because they're having such a great time, and like, you know, that's a singular to punk as far as I'm concerned. Like the idea that like my singer just crashed into the drums and like knocked something over, and it's the best possible thing that could have happened right then.
Right.
It is, though.
He's not pissed.
It was, and he's not pissed. I'm not pissed. We're both like, hell yeah, like give me more, you know, and the audience is down for that. It's not an accident, you know, like this is how we do it. And you know, it's the microcosm of person falls in the pit and you pick them up, and it just extends to a million places. So anytime something like that happened that was community wise, that one does it for me every time, like that kind of a thing, especially like
right.
the old school hall show memories.
Right. What did you do to stay busy during COVID, and how has it been for you transitioning out of that period? Because it was really hard for most musicians. Although,
Yeah.
I mean, we got a lot of recording done.
Yeah. So I had, well, I wouldn't say an easy time. I had a easier time than most, I think. And part of the reason for that is because like I had a girlfriend, longtime serious girlfriend, a dog, and neighbors who were really willing to like let me fucking set up a practice drum kit in my apartment. And then like, oh, the living room is a problem for you because like all you can hear downstairs is my foot. Okay, I'll move it into this other room. Oh, this is fine. This is fine. I can have a drum set in my apartment, and I would like slowly transition it from being a practice kit with like the low volume cymbals and like drum pads instead of drums. Like I started like putting real drums with a lot of muffling, and then slowly like less muffling, and then the cymbals would get bigger.
And slowly their wine consumption became more and more.
Yeah. And you know, they had no problem. Like it's mostly my dad. The only people I had issues with ever were my downstairs neighbors. And one of them is like a tap dancer. So if anybody's going to fucking get it,
yeah,
it's a tap dancer. So like I have their schedules memorized, and like, since then we've been able to maintain this, but I was able to set this up, and I like basically put myself through home recording boot camp over the course of the pandemic. I was also, you know, practicing and sharpening the sword and all that good stuff. But, you know, as far as like how I'm going to use this time to set myself up down the line, it was slowly getting a working studio in here. That's the main thing I did.
That's awesome. I'm glad.
I didn't have any shows or tours get canceled. Like Such Gold was like, was writing, and like, we didn't even know at the beginning of the pandemic that like we were going to have a whole, I thought we were just in post, more not in post, but you know, drums were done. I thought, you know, things were looking good. I thought we were going to have a whole record, but we didn't have any tours lined up. We didn't, you know, we had a new label to announce. We still haven't announced that we're going to, but like, we haven't even done that still. So like, I didn't have any big tours or big things that got canceled like that. It wasn't like I was out and had to go home, or that I lost a bunch of gigs and anything like that. I'm glad that I didn't lose any gigs. And so in those ways, I had a slightly easier time, I think, than a lot of people did.
Right. There wasn't that disappointment. The expectation of a very specific set of income.
Yeah. And the other thing that helped a lot was that I was teaching private lessons. I had just enough of a hobble studio set up at the time. I think I had a 2-channel interface in the beginning, and but it was enough to teach lessons with. And there was a studio in Brooklyn that I was teaching for at the time, and so and I also taught like people that I knew independently as well. But I had this studio that was like also desperate to not go out of business. And I was one of the first teachers that, I didn't know this at the time, but I was one of the first teachers that got that together quickly. And like, I like didn't cancel lessons. Like, I don't know, like I became one of the workhorses for them. And so, you know, it wasn't a shitload because I mean, there were people that were wanting to take lessons, of course, because everyone was buying instruments and stuff, but I didn't have like, especially after like the first full year, like things started to dwindle, but there was a time where I had like 10 to 15 students every week from that. And it wasn't like a shitload of money, but it was just enough to feel like, right. Okay, you know, like I'm doing something. So yeah, it was relatively painless for me. I also could live on a desert island with like one other person and be fine most of the time. Just one of those people. I
probably could too. I could probably live on a desert island with just my dogs if I had to.
Yeah.
Be actually more than content.
Yeah. Similar.
And what about since? Like we've been pretty free to roam about the lands for the last year and a half. And how has that time been for you? And what do you have? I mean, you just sort of hinted at one thing that's coming up, but it sounds like there's a record to be released.
Yep.
And a label announcement.
Yeah. It's being, we're mid mastering process right now. But yeah, so later this year, and we'll probably in a couple months, we'll, be announcing the record and the label. But so I moved to New York City in 2018. And
just in time.
Yeah, dude, it was a problem. I was just getting some things starting to happen. I mean, I don't know, you know, not saying that I was suddenly going to be on all the late night shows or anything like that, but things were happening. So when the pandemic starts to come to an end, one of the things that became clear very quickly is that like a lot of the things that had been, when I said things were happening, a lot of things that had been happening were coming by way of subbing, which is how most people get started in any new town. But in New York, there's just, between all the types of music that are happening here, there's 1 million subs needed. And I was starting to get real momentum there. But what happened is pandemic ends. It doesn't, but gigs slowly are coming back, but the saturation level did not really return. I'm not even sure that it still has. I mean, right. Tours are happening again. Great. Like things are coming and going all the time, but especially in like 2022, like I started getting at the end of 2021, I started trying to get out there. There was fucking nothing, because anyone who needed me to sub before, or who potentially might have needed me to sub for them in a different timeline, those people aren't subbing now. Those drummers are like, I need every fucking gig. And they're still, 15%, 20% of the gigs that were happening before. We're all, that's it. It feels like everything's happening, but the saturation level just, it's I think it's basically returning to where it was like now. So
Right.
all that sub shit dried up for me, man. So in the immediate time frame where like work started popping up again, I started taking a lot more corporate event work. And so that's been because, you know, as soon as corporate events could happen again, it's not like they were short on, like corporations are short on cash. Like they're trying to get back to business as usual as soon as they can. So like driving box trucks and like setting up lights that came back. Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. All those parties are to prove how much they care. So weddings and like driving trucks and stuff was like the first thing I got back to doing. And I mean, I hadn't even done a lot of that. I had gotten into the theater side, partly because my girlfriend is a theater professional. She's actually about to make her Broadway debut as a dresser.
Amazing.
Yeah. They are teching a show right now called Peter Pan Goes Wrong. And it's in a series of both plays, and as well as in the BBC, they have TV shows too of this, but it's the original was called The Play That Goes Wrong. That's what she used to work on. It's basically about like a college troupe doing a play and they fuck everything up. That's literally what the show is. So they have the sequel, which is Peter Pan Goes Wrong. The first one was like a murder mystery in a mansion, like a classic thing. Yeah. And now it's supposed to be the same university troupe as well. It's like it's a show within a show. So it's supposed to be the same characters playing Peter Pan now. Anyway, that's what she's getting into.
In the show, you're watching a show be created.
You are watching college, what you're supposed to think they're college students putting on a production of Peter Pan. Awesome. Or in the beginning, it was this murder mystery. So, but the characters that you're actually seeing are the college students are supposed to be the college students, but they're doing a different play this time. Anyway, I got through her friends and some other people and I had some experience doing theatrical stuff in the past, but those were the gigs that were coming back. Not all the theater stuff was slower to come back. It was the corporate thing first for sure. And then the theater stuff started to come back.
Is that production work or is that performance work?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Although most of my theatrical performance work was either like in cabaret settings or it would be like, 2 or 3 performances of something. I wasn't getting my goal before the pandemic was to be starting to work off Broadway playing drums. And at some point I will do that, I'm sure, but
those plans are wild, man. I've talked to a few people who play a variety of instruments on those Broadway shows, and I mean, it never even occurred to me that they're nowhere near the stage or they're underneath the stage. They don't see, they're watching on a monitor.
They could be anywhere now. Like in the past, you couldn't do that. Now we can. Yeah.
Technology.
And a lot of times I'll be working in the production side on audio and like, I'll be the one setting up the one that, the most it's like Band-Aid, like, it's a bandage. No, it's Band-Aid brand name. The one that we usually talk about is called a Delve Cam. And basically like you're going to need a monitor to see like something. If you're not on stage, if you don't have a conductor in your sight line, then you're going to need to either have the conductor on a little monitor and they got a little camera on their music stand, or like maybe you got a monitor to see the stage or something like that. If you have to like nail specific things with the actors, but yeah, it is wild. It is wild now.
Also, the depth of understanding of how theatrical music and sound works for a sub is gnarly to me. But
yeah, and certain shows, especially like some shows are much more straightforward than others. But yeah, like there's a guy I know from Connecticut who I'm not super close friends with, but is a guy I know, and he's been subbing on Hamilton recently. And that is not just you pick up the sticks and you read off the book. Like there's a lot to do and to know what to do. Like there's electronic components to the drum kit. Like you got to read the notes in the music. The person's chicken scratch. Like I can't even tell what that says. I didn't know that meant I was supposed to hit the SPD right then. There's 1 million of those kinds of things. So usually you sit and you shadow them first. Most of the time, if you're going to sub Hamilton.
Yeah.
I have not seen it live. No,
I haven't seen it either. I think it was in Albany. I'm very close to Albany. So I might try to go see it.
Yeah.
Treat myself.
That show is going to be touring forever. So.
Right.
Yeah, there should be plenty of opportunities. But yeah, the theater thing is interesting. It's, I really like it. I like it way more now than I did when I was in college. And I did a bunch of, regional productions in Connecticut. Like I would come home from the road, and if I had like 2 months or something like that, and it would line up with a production at this one theater, then that's what I would be doing when I was home. Yeah, so there was a period of that. But yeah.
As you get older, I think, I don't know if this resonates with you or not, but being able to do a gig that is in a creative arena and then sleep in your own bed that night is pretty fucking sweet.
This is that Megamind meme.
Pretty.
The one where it's like it shows that, and then the final one is like somebody's brain just going, and it's whatever the conclusion you're trying to get to is the Megamind or something like that. I forget what they call it.
I still have a deep appreciation for getting, on a bus, not so much a van.
No, yeah.
For a month or even 6 weeks and traveling and being in a different city almost every day. Like once you get in the rhythm of that, there's something really great about it.
Yeah. I totally miss it. I have barely been on tour in the last 4 years compared to what I was doing. It's barely, obviously, the pandemic is a lot of that time, but it had slowed down a lot right before that as well. So I know what you mean. I miss that. I miss that shit.
But it sounds like there will be some touring that will be announced along with this record release.
Yep.
That the plan. Most excellent.
We are, as everybody does when you get, I don't know, whatever age it is, but when you get past like 32 or something like that, you're like, I'm going to be a little more choosy about, festivals. That sounds great.
That first time you put your back out, like putting on your underwear after a shower, you're just like, what just happened?
Yeah. That happened. Something like that happened to me during the pandemic. And I think it was completely related to it was pandemic related. It's just sitting on the couch a lot and like leaning up against the wall and I don't know, looking at my phone and like never, doing any chest opening, any of that stuff. And I stepped over the bathtub one day to get in the shower and I must have done something. And I just went, oh my God, I like this whole shoulder just was like, nope, this is where we live now. I think I actually tore something, but I'm still trying to.
That's the beautiful part of aging. Like you can tear your shoulder getting out of the shower, but not playing drums physically. Like
right.
Whatever that repetitive motion thing is.
Right. But now because of the shower thing, I gotta spend 15 minutes before I play, doing something, getting
This is what you get for only showering every 4 days.
Yeah.
That's what your shoulder's telling you during the pandemic.
What, you thought there wouldn't be consequences?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, I was going to ask, Harvey Danger, how long have you been playing with Harvey Danger?
Well, that band is not together any longer. If they ever wanted to reunite, I would love to go play bass for them.
Mm-hmm.
If any of them are listening, I'll make a highlight reel of this just to drive the point home. I
was that all post
with them.
Was that all post your van days, or did any of that stuff happen?
Yeah, that
in
was
van?
my first bus tour, and it
Sick.
was fucking awesome. I was in heaven. You know, I was like being paid a retainer.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a salary, you know, and I had a guitar tech.
Yeah.
And it was magical. It was absolutely magical. But you know, they did not need a second guitar player. I think they just felt like maybe for their sophomore release they needed to take it up a level. There was some expectation and this and that. So they brought me and another guy on playing keyboards, this guy John from the Long Winters. I don't know if you know that band or not, but
can't say I do.
It was really, really fun. But Aaron, the bass player, passed away about 5-6 years ago.
Oh shit.
And he was, you know, he was the Peter Hook of that band. He was he was a very melodic, driving bass player. And so I don't know if they could do it without him, or if they even have interest in doing it. But if they ever wanted to, I would lovingly learn Aaron's bass lines and do it.
Yeah,
because I think I also loved that man. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I can't pretend to know the material like beyond the one song. I can't pretend to know it that well, but I certainly listened enough to know that, like, yeah, that just seems like an incredibly fun band to actually be in. Yeah,
it was pretty fun. I mean, yeah, festivals, you know, big club tour.
But I feel like even if you weren't doing that, like the type of band it is, like if we just back in like touring in a van, playing in like a smaller punk club situation, that still feels like a really fun like thing to do every night.
I mean, playing music I could have
in general,
fun.
true.
Yeah. They didn't really know what to do with me and the other extra guy. We were sort of, you know, we were two peas in a pod, and we kind of scared them a lot. Like those guys met the rest of the band, the 4 core members, they all met because they all wrote for the University of Washington newspaper.
Okay.
And they all heard Nevermind or whatever, and went out and bought instruments at the same time and started a band, and they all loved Sebado together.
Okay.
And so
that fully checks out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you know, they had they were just different than me. You know, I grew up in a trailer and I joined the Marine Corps. You know what I mean?
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know the Marine Corps thing. I didn't know the trailer thing either, but I wouldn't have guessed the Marine Corps thing as easily.
Most people wouldn't. Yeah. So we were coming from very different places. And bless them for not firing me. Because it was threatened every night. And I'd be like, okay. I won't do it again.
Was the original unit a 4-piece?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we toured as
that's especially
piece.
Now that, once you add that 6th person, like sometimes, it feels a little extra.
It was fine and good and fun. It was a lot of fun.
6 people, not a ska band. Ooh.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I've had a really amazing time hanging out, but I need to fuck off and walk my dogs.
Sounds good.
Before we turn off the recording, I want to let people know that, and I don't want to say what you played on specifically, but you guessed it on a Couch Riffs cover, and I think it is phenomenal.
It came out great. It really did. I like every part of it. I'm so stoked on.
I think you probably had, because you played first and you played to scratch tracks of a cover of the original.
Yeah.
And I just sort of gave you some sort of reference points to
Yeah.
go off of. You had no idea what I really had in mind.
Not exactly. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that the way I described it, do you think it works?
Yes, it completely checks. It completely matches that initial description for sure. What
Thank God.
was good for me, and it's really funny talking about this like in code almost, but what worked out really well is that I was telling you that I like when I'm doing like the cover thing, whether it's in a wedding band or if I'm like doing a drum cover or whatever. I like really enjoy like getting as close as I can to recreating like the key stuff. And in this particular song, there was a lot of chances for me to like reverse engineer drum sounds that probably weren't even made by the drum part wasn't even made by a drummer.
Right.
So that was exciting. But also I like to take that, and if I'm not doing an exact recreation, I like to be able to like, I like it when the audience or a listener can be like, oh, they do know all the dumb little things. I can tell that they know the dumb little things and that they're choosing not to do them at certain points, or we're choosing to twist and go in a different place. So that's what I tried to do with the song, was be very faithful, but also like that song just has a lot of like things about it that are funny and silly, and they weren't meant to be in the original. And then as soon as you tell me to those 2 reference points, I was like, there's either a lot I can do, or what I ended up doing was I changed it very little, but I like tried to keep it witty and like added some double bass in that one part, because I knew like if we're going to do those reference points, I got to find some way to be overt about like how dumb and ridiculous of a decision it would be. So that just was a no-brainer.
I feel like it really makes the song. I'll say this much to people who have hung in there with us, is that the reference points that I gave were, I think, the Butthole Surfers and either Jesus Lizard or Ministry, or maybe all 3.
Melvins is what you said to me.
Oh, Melvins. Okay.
You said Melvins and Butthole Surfer. And then I sort of like, maybe you also mentioned Jesus Lizard, but I don't know. I sort of ended up there anyway, because by thinking of the original song and then thinking of Melvins and Butthole Surfers, it sort of just naturally ended up in Jesus Lizard area.
Right.
I mean, and the vocals for sure are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not quite as much howling as Yao, but the inanity of it all is nice.
Well, I specifically asked you because watching you play, I thought that you would nail it, and you did not disappoint. So I know I've given you accolades through text and email communication, but I'm happy to get to just say that to your face, because I think the song came out great, and I think people are going to love it.
Thank you, my friend. I'm really lovely to work on this. Like, it was great. It was even great when I had to do it over again, because I tracked it to the wrong thing, I didn't use the tracks you sent me because I forgot they existed. Yeah, even that was great. So it's a really nice, I also enjoyed going over your back catalog and like seeing how things would fit in. And, you know, it was as soon as I started doing that, I was like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, this is great. This is something I want to do. You know, it's
all evolving into sort of more like what we did. I'm going to kill this, actually. Don't hang up.
Not hanging up.
Don't disconnect.